Welcome to Agree to Disagree, the podcast where two sisters show how you can disagree about everything but still keep that family bond and friendship.
That's right. We're Sharon and Karen, and we don't just see the world differently, we live it differently. Grab a coffee, settle in, and enjoy the conversation. Who knows? You might even find yourself changing sides.
Hi, Sharon.
Hi, Karen. How are you doing? How's Morocco?
Morocco's good. It's a beautiful day. How's Texas?
Hot and humid.
Getting hot, huh?
Yeah. High 93 today, but
It was only a high of 93.
that's okay. But heat index was 100.
Ooh.
And it's not even June yet. It's May 25th of 2025. Yeah.
So,
What are we talking about today, Seth?
today we're talking about what I think you've been dying to talk about for a while.
I know. I don't think I've been dying to talk about it.
Do you fear the U.S. could be taken over by socialism?
Oh, yeah. I've been dying to talk. No, I'm just kidding.
Laying awake at night.
Yeah, no. So I actually did a lot of research on this, by the way.
Good.
And a lot of reading on this. I did more reading on just what is the differences between capitalism, socialism, communism, that kind of stuff. And the more that I read about what those ideologies are about, the more that I realized that actually, even though our government and our society is built on a capitalistic ideology, we have a lot of socialism policies.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because that's what I think as well. But I started talking about this with my daughter and my husband, and because I'm like, well, we have the police, we have fire, we have infrastructure that's public, and they're like, no, that's different. That's not socialism. That's public works.
If you read,
they look at it completely differently. They look at it completely differently.
So interesting.
And we had an argument about this last weekend over lunch in a restaurant.
You can tell them I agree with you.
Yes, I think that's going to be because they were like, you need to know what socialism actually is before you go into this conversation. And I'm like, oh crap, I really do, because you guys are telling me I am wrong.
No, I agree with you.
Thank you. See, we're the rational ones. They're the crazy ones.
There we go.
I cannot wait to tell them that you agree with me on that.
I do. Before I even read about just the U.S. and how our government's structured, I was sitting there thinking, as I was reading about socialism and how you define socialism, I'm like, but we do that. We have public works. That's where our taxes go.
Right.
We are supporting the well-being of society by paying for those services. Then I got to reading about capitalism in America, and they were saying, even though it is a capitalistic society in America, there are a lot of socialistic programs.
Social programs,
Social programs. I mean, I was a social worker.
Yeah, but the difference is the way that my husband and daughter were explaining it. It's like there's a difference between the public goods and socialism, like true socialism. And
so I did read that there has never really been a true application or execution of pure socialism in any country.
Or communism or capitalism.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're
they're
talking about
function. They're talking about the pure.
Well, they would disagree with you because I told you I had this conversation with them. There's argument and disagreement. They just see it as public works. They don't see it as a form of socialism at all. And I disagreed with them. But
I disagree with them as well.
So did you...
What do they say then? They say that if that's not social public works, what do they say is? They say that every corporation should be owned by everybody?
Because they were saying, that this is like just part of a civil society is having these public works, whereas socialism is an ideology. And it's different in that concept.
Again, I think they're going to a pure socialism ideology. And that's never...
They started disagreeing with me, so I shut down.
That's where my son gets that from. No, my son doesn't actually do that anymore.
I just disagreed with them on that. But
I disagree with them as well. I agree with you and you agree with me, that America, although we have a lot of capitalistic policies and structure in our country, we also have some socialism.
We have social
just
policies.
social policies.
Yeah.
We have social policies. And I think that, now you may disagree with me because this may go back to our voting conversation that we had and that got a little heated. Even my son said it got a little heated. I think that's why it's such a popular place, because, like we said, 1/5 of immigrants in the world live in the U.S. This is a very popular place to come and live to get a better life. And it may be because whatever. It may be because of the merging and kind of a hybrid approach to capitalism.
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
Do you know, I mean, democratic socialist countries exist, which are countries like Canada, the Nordic countries, Sweden, Norway, France, Germany, Denmark.
They do.
Those are considered the most successful countries because they are a combination of democratic and socialist ideals.
There's a lot of immigrants from Canada in the U.S. Now, that just might be because of proximity. I don't know what the rate of I don't know what the stat is on.
Well, we're talking about two different things. I think you're talking about two different things, because the immigrants come to the U.S. for the opportunities. There are still more economic opportunities because it is more of a capitalistic.
That's what I'm saying. No, that's what I'm
capitalistic
saying.
Structure.
But that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
But they come here. I think that the difference is that they'll come here. But if you look at quality of life or happiness scales that they do, or where people prefer to live and the kind of lifestyles, what is a good lifestyle? The U.S. does not top those other countries. Those other countries consistently top the U.S. in quality of life. And
I would go back to, I'm going to go back to, because, I love this argument. I'm going to go back to the argument that we're such a freaking young country. Now, Canada's young as well. So that argument doesn't play out when you compare Canada to the U.S., right?
Canada's just too cold to live in. It's really freaking cold. If they weren't that cold, they'd be doing a lot better, I think.
But you can say that about Wyoming and Montana.
Yeah, no one wants to live there. It's too cold.
We do have the smallest populations there. That is true. You're saying their quality of life from an economic perspective may be higher. You're saying their emotional quality of life might not be higher, but I'm like,
no, I'm saying their emotional quality of life seems to be higher.
It's to be low.
Their economic.
In the other countries. No, yeah. In other countries, their economic, we're saying the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm agreeing with you. However, it still then begs the question, why do they still want to live here then? Because
you don't get a lot of people moving. You don't get a lot of people moving from democratic socialist countries. You don't get a lot of immigrants coming from
I think we do in Canada. I think we do in Canada. I think we have a lot of
You probably have the same numbers of immigrants both ways from countries like France and Denmark. It's probably the same amount of immigration both ways. I doubt that there's an overwhelming amount of people coming from Denmark.
I do agree with you because I hate it when we were... No, I'm just kidding.
Hate it when I'm right.
Because when I had looked at the immigrant statistics in our country and the 11 million that are here, the highest percentage were from Latin American countries, and Asian countries actually topped Latin American countries. All of the Asian countries topped it. So you're right. And that's what, when you were saying that, I said, but there's not a whole lot of people coming here and I do think it's because they're happier there.
Yeah.
They're not striving for the next buck or to climb the corporate ladder
I think it is safe to say the majority of immigrants come to the United States for economic opportunities. It's not for quality of life. It's for economic opportunities.
Yeah,
and that's it.
I would agree with that. But then, so the question that we had, because I think we veered way off from our question, do I fear that our country could turn into a socialism type of country? I think that there have been politicians and candidates in the past that have been preaching more of a socialism type of country. I think Bernie Sanders.
No, because the only thing he wants to do is more like public health care. But he wants to offer that in conjunction. No. Yes, that's his biggest thing is let's have health care for all.
And have public health care, though. We have health care. We have public health care. It's called Medicaid and Medicare. We just need to fix it. We have it. We just need to fix it.
He is saying for access for everyone. We need to fix it. And the policies that they are calling for Sanders and AOC, the only policies that they are calling for that you call socialist is just an expansion of public works that we already have. And they're not saying do that in lieu of private. They're saying do it in conjunction with, give people an option, give people the safety net so that you don't have this inequality. So I think, in my opinion, the socialism word that has been used to attack those two is taken out of context.
But there's also the argument that anybody that listens to our podcast, which the two that do, I don't know how religious they are. If you give a man a fish, you're teaching him nothing. But if you teach a man to fish, you're teaching him everything, right? So if we just give and give and give to people, and we've seen it in our welfare system in our country, even when Clinton was in office, and this was something I really agreed with him on. And when Clinton was in office, he set down some laws that said if you're going to be on welfare, you have to be showing that you are applying for jobs or you are upping your skill set or you are doing something to try to get out of the welfare system.
What's that got to do with healthcare access?
Because it's not just about healthcare. It's not just about
welfare.
Healthcare.
To me, welfare is a different issue than access to healthcare.
I know, but when you are giving people things, and it's not just healthcare, it's never just about one thing. It's about, no, we need to give this, we need to give that, we need to give people free phones, free this.
Who said free phones? Oh, yeah. No one has said free phones. But providing access to free health care is not, a lot of democracies do it, and they are not turning into socialist societies.
But we have public health care in Medicaid.
You do not have free health care. You cannot say that you have access to free health care. No, you don't.
That is what our public health care is Medicaid and Medicare. That is what it is. And it is for those that are disadvantaged, for those that, and then you've got Obamacare, and you've got CHIPS, you've got
middle income people. I know some of my middle income or high income friends that are in the United States, and they are saying, well, I want to go to the doctor, but I haven't reached my deductible yet, and I need to go before the end of the year, and I don't know if I should go to the emergency room. When they are weighing the benefits of going to the doctor or pursuing health care against the cost, that is a problem. These are not people that are on Medicaid or Medicare, and not people that would even qualify. I am talking about reducing the cost of healthcare so that people have an option, making it more affordable so that people are free, or at least affordable. I am in a third world country, and
No, you're not.
I'm in a developing country, and the quality of healthcare. I don't want you to get in trouble for that. The quality of healthcare is very good. And I don't have to worry about the cost because the cost is manageable. And that's private. They have both here. They have private and they have public.
And they have community hospitals here that people go to all the time and get free health care.
But I don't think that they do, because I know someone who went and used that for their mother years ago, and they kept getting bills. Even Parkland is supposed to be free, but you still get bills.
But you know what? You still get bills. But guess what? At least in Texas, they cannot send those bills to a credit agency, and if they do, it doesn't go against your credit. It can't go against.
They're still billing you for it. It's still a debt.
But you don't have to pay. No, you don't have to pay. You do not have to pay.
You cannot say that people are not making the decision not to go to the doctor because they can't afford it.
I'm not saying that. The law is if you make a good faith payment of $1, you're fine. You're fine.
I don't know about.
You don't have to pay your medical bills. I have friends that have thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars worth of medical bills.
Well, then how do you explain? Then how do you explain that people go? Then how do you explain people going bankrupt because of medical bills?
Why are we talking about this? We were way off our subject.
No, but you're talking about you don't want health care.
I didn't say I didn't want healthcare. What I said was, I don't want a society where we give everybody everything for free. I didn't say specifically.
Well, you're taking it to the extreme. You're taking it to the extreme. You said everything. You said we don't want a society where we give everyone everything for free. No one wants that. No one is asking for that. A society where we give everyone everything for free.
If you look at the socialism,
no one's calling for socialism. No one is saying let's live in a socialist society. No politician, no one from the left is saying I want to live in a socialist society.
I may have to research that and see if anybody does say, because I disagree with you that it is just about. But I disagree with you that it's just about healthcare, free healthcare.
It's not just about healthcare, but there is no left politician that is coming out and saying, I want to live in a socialist society, or I want the U.S. to be a socialist society.
You're right. They probably aren't, but they're saying we want to give free healthcare. We want to write off all student debt. We want to give this free. We want to give this free.
And it's not write off all student debt. It is write off because you cannot say that student debt has not gotten out of control.
Let me get through my thought here. However, if we give free here and we give free here and we give free here and we give free here, because you're talking to somebody who was a social worker for 18 years and sat with clients who were not working and living off of the state and living off of the federal government and literally telling me, why do I need to work? I can make as much money living off of the state than I can anywhere else. So I'm just going to live off the state. I don't need to work. I mean, people saying this to me.
I'm not saying that they weren't. I'm not saying that they weren't, but the majority of people are not going to go down that road, number one. And you can put policies in place that say, no, if you can work and you are working age, then you can.
This is where you and I disagree, and this goes back to the capitalism. The reason that capitalism is such a popular ideology right now is because it does speak to the human need and human nature to be independent.
Yes.
To own your own place, to own your own things, to be successful and to be able to say that you add value or that you contribute somehow and that kind of stuff. And if you give things free and you don't teach a man to fish, but you just give him a fish, this is where you said, most people won't do that. And I'm saying, I was a social worker. Most people will take that lazy route.
No, but you have to understand that you were dealing with people because you say the most people that you dealt with in social work. Yes, because you dealt with people in social work that fall into that category. But if most people in society felt like that, then most people in America would be on welfare, and they're not.
Okay, then let's go back to the other argument. If most people would do that, because maybe I'm wrong about that, most people would be lazy and then live off of the others. Let's say that I'm wrong about that. Then that again speaks to why capitalism works and why people
I never said capitalism.
I
never said capitalism didn't work.
I know. So I just want to make sure, because the question that we posed was, are we fearful? Am I fearful? Not you, because you're not.
Yeah,
am I
not.
fearful that the U.S. could become a socialism type of society? And regardless of healthcare, if we go down the road where we are giving a lot of free stuff to people, then we are flipping, and we are not mostly capitalism with a little bit of social policy. We are mostly socialism with a little bit of capitalistic policies. And then we have, I think, become an ideology and become a country that first and foremost is not as prosperous, and one that people don't want to come to for a better economic life.
Yeah, but I think that this is an irrational fear because the
because
thought
you think I'm irrational.
Well, no, the thought of the U.S. becoming a socialist country, I think that's just never going to happen. I think that we're so far away from that ever happening. We have too many deep-rooted capitalistic structures, and no one is calling for. I haven't seen anyone in the history of the U.S. calling for a socialist society or let's move towards a socialist society.
No, but can you agree and can you see where the right is coming from when you hear on the campaign trail, candidates saying, we want to give this free, we want to give this free, this should be appropriately, divided out equally, this should be, and there's not this capitalism type of ideology being talked to on the left.
No, I think it is the exact same thing as, I could sit here and I could say to you that people on the left see Trump espousing ideas of authoritarianism. Do you think it's irrational for people on the left to think that he wants an authoritarian regime?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I think it's irrational for people on the right to think that the Democrats want a socialist regime. So it goes back to
he's like one of the number one capitalists.
He is and he's not. If you listen to some of the things that he says, I want to be king, you can take anything out of context and make it play into what you believe.
And we've already talked about how he speaks about ratings. I mean, he speaks to get ratings.
Yeah, but everything can be taken out of context. And so the left is doing the same thing that the right is doing and saying, okay,
I see your point. I see your point. But I will, because we're talking about this, I am going to do some research. I will.
Good.
Different socialist types of policies that we have heard from left candidates over the years. And we'll see.
We'll follow this up
because maybe I'm totally, like you said, maybe I'm totally just listening to the rhetoric.
We'll do a topic on our Sanders and AOC pro-socialist.
Let's not talk about them, but let's just talk about their platform.
Well, their platforms,
talk about the platform. Let's just talk about their platform.
So we can go into another one about that. But I did want to, because I also want to tackle, and I don't know if we'll do it in the AOC one or when we talk about that one, or if we'll do it on another one, because I personally think the U.S. is headed towards, if not already, at oligarchy. Did you look up oligarchy?
I did. Well, that's the whole campaign trail that AOC and Bernie are on right now.
Well, a lot of people have said the U.S.
That's the term they're throwing out.
Well, it's not just them. The U.S. has been seen as an oligarchy for a long time now, not just recently. Yeah. They're just pulling it out now. But I did want to go back to your quote. You love Jefferson much.
Oh.
That what you used last week, a government big enough to give you everything you want is strong enough to take everything you have.
Yes.
It actually isn't Jefferson.
It is.
No, it's not.
No, that was Thomas Jefferson.
No, it's not. It's never been attributed. It's never officially been attributed to Jefferson. They can't find anything in his writing that he ever came up with that statement. And it was actually copyrighted in 1957 by General Features Corporation.
Oh, I'm going to have to do some more research on that. Why do they have it as Thomas Jefferson quote?
Because you can't believe anything that you read on the internet nowadays.
Probably.
And especially with quotes. Quotes are very much attributed to the wrong people these days.
I know. Because I did some research on one of my favorite quotes that supposedly was from Winston Churchill.
Yeah.
But then when I did some research on it, it really wasn't from Winston Churchill.
Right.
And it had been kind of switched and moved around a lot through history. So that by the time that it got attributed to him, it was almost flipped. If you're not a liberal by the time you're 20, you have no heart. If you're not a conservative, by the time you're 40, you have no head. And the reason I like that quote is because to me, that speaks to balance.
Well, to me, it does not. It's just completely opposite of balance, because to me, it's saying you actually have no heart as you get older. Like, I would rather have heart.
It speaks to balance.
No,
it speaks to
it's not balance.
You are developing your heart as a youth.
And then losing your heart.
Your head.
No.
Well, you know, I'm sorry, experience does make us lose our heart sometimes.
I think that's, see, to me, I look at it completely differently. And I look at it as you start to lose your empathy and lose your heart as you get older, because you prioritize finances, you prioritize money.
I think it speaks to balance, that you have the first quarter of your life, you developed your heart. The second quarter of your life, you've developed your head. And then in the last half of your life, you're balancing the two and living with both.
Yeah, because in your mind, you take that as you're an idiot if you're not a Republican.
No,
conservative.
That is not how I take that at all. I think it speaks to that you have to have both. You have to have the development of your heart and you have to have the development of your head. And you have to have both in order to, and I think that that's what you and it's the same thing with our discussion today. Our U.S. ideology that we live by here is both capitalism and socialism. We have both. We are a hybrid. We are not just one. And most people are not just one. They're not just the head or just the heart. They're a mix.
Yes.
You're saying because I'm right-winged that I have no heart. You're talking to somebody who brought in a homeless vet that my husband picked up on the side of the road and housed him for 4 weeks in my house. How do I have no empathy and no heart for doing that?
Well, some people would say you don't have a head because of that, because it really wasn't the smartest thing to do.
Some people may, but you can't say I don't have a heart.
Well, going back to and you do have a heart. I would never say honestly that you don't have a heart.
You say I have no empathy.
Well, yeah, but did I tell you that my daughter also said I have no empathy? Because I told her I said that to you, and she's like, "You don't either." And I'm like, "Wait a minute."
No, I have more empathy than you do.
Oh, please. No, but going back to your quote, a government big enough to give you everything you want is strong enough to take everything you have. I mean, I look at that
absolutely.
and I see that and I apply that directly today to what the Trump administration is doing. If they're giving their constituents everything they want, they don't realize they also have the ability to take everything they have away.
No. But they're reducing the government size.
But not reducing their control.
They're reducing the government size. And in doing that, they are reducing the control.
I see it differently.
Remember what we talked about, even with the Department of Education, right? I mean,
it's not reducing the government's control. Reducing the size, not their control.
Size, and it's given that money elsewhere.
Not their control. Not their control. Because
we also talked about how the Department of Education really doesn't have control over the state's education.
Exactly. Reducing the size does not reduce their control.
But that's just one department.
Reducing their size does not reduce their control. And I think this is going to have to be another topic
that may need to be another topic.
Yeah.
That may need to be another topic. All right. So we agree that your husband and your daughter
are wrong.
And you and I are right.
You and I are right. That's right. Go team.
Go team. Because I get it. They're looking at it from a very purist place.
But see, they said that I was. That's the argument they used against me. Like, you're looking at it from a purist place. And I'm like, no.
No, you're not.
I think that
there's been no country ever that has been able to put socialism, the purest form of socialism, in practice.
Or communism, or capitalism.
Exactly.
The purest form of anything into practice.
And I think that speaks to, you have to have the heart and the head in both, in all of it. That's why those ideologies, those very strict, purist ideologies don't work. Look at Marxism. That it doesn't work.
Right.
You have to have both the heart and the head to run a country. There you go.
It's about the heart and the head. It's simple.
It's about the heart and the head.
So once again, we are solving all of the world's problems.
No, we're not. We're just talking heads like everybody else. Talking hearts and talking heads.
All right. Well, sounds good.
All right.
So the U.S. is not doomed.
We're not doomed.
That's good.
Well, right now, I don't think we're doomed. Wait until Trump's no longer there.
Oh, my God. See, I see it completely the opposite. I think we're doomed for the next 4 years.
No. Yeah, ask me if I feel like we're doomed when the next Democrat gets in office. And I'll say, we're doomed. Geez. I was feeling very doomsday for the last 4 years, that's for sure.
We're going to have a podcast on Biden's 4 years.
He didn't do much.
Well, we will need a podcast on that to talk about what exactly did he do. If you don't think he did much, then why were you thinking we were so doomed?
Just opened our borders like crazy.
All right. Until next time.
Until next time, Seth.
Bye.
Bye.
That wraps up today's show. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed the show, please leave us a rating and review. It helps us improve and get the word out.
Reach out to us on Facebook and Instagram or shoot us an email at agreetodisagree@gmail.com.
Let us know what you think, what topics you'd like us to cover, or any questions you might have. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode.